How are you? How is my Insta family? I hope you're really well. I just was sitting in my usual spot for my live video, and it's so amazing to actually look out the window and there's sunlight. Usually when I do my lives at 8 o'clock for you, it's pitch black. So hopefully we get to a stage where I can shoot some outside in the coming months. So I hope you're all well. I'm trying to hide my bags under my eyes a little bit. Hope you are all very well. Now listen, I always talk a lot about the positives. You know, we can do this and what we can do here and tools to be able to do this, this, and this. But what I thought I might share tonight is actually some things that I see that completely can derail people's careers. So, you know, it takes their careers off the hinges, or you might think of it as blind spots that people get that really affect their careers, or like them having blinkers on. Just some key points. I've got 4 for you of things that can really unhinge your success, your career, or your trajectory as to how fast you get in your career where you want to go. The first one is lack of self-awareness. Now, this might seem really simple, but it is actually critical. One of the most important factors for a leader really is awareness, and there's so many people that you see that don't really have that self-awareness. So when I'm talking about self-awareness, I'm talking about having an understanding of the impact and influence you are having on the people around you. Now, traditionally, when you start your career and you might be quite young, your impact and influence might be quite minimal, so you're not even thinking about that kind of awareness. But as your career starts to develop and you start to have more management, or you start to have more reach, more influence, that impact becomes so much larger, and you really need to have more of an awareness of what's going on. If you still do not have a concept of your awareness on your surroundings and what impact you are having on those people, that can really derail your career. You know, really understanding that people that are in your team looking up the line to you or across to you, whatever it may be, they are really sensitive to things that you do. If you are in a bad mood, if you cannot relate to them, how your tone of voice, how you dress, all of those things, really having a deep understanding and awareness of how people perceive you, how the people in your office and workplace react to the way that you act in things. It's really that self-awareness. And the thing is, the more you reach up in your career, the more that you hire, that you go, the more important it is to have that awareness, because the more eyes are on you, the more spotlight is on you. So it's something that you've got to continuously work on, but it is one of the biggest things that can unhinge your career. You may be brilliant at your job, but unless you have good awareness and really self-awareness and that respect about what's going on around you and how you influence, you're always going to have that ceiling because you're not having those true leadership skills. So that is definitely number one, kind of blinkers, things that I see to unhinge people's careers. Number 2, I've got here as kind of a mixed bag, but it's really to do with fear of failure. Now, we all have a fear of failure. Of course, we would all much rather succeed than to fail. But fear of failure can actually lead us to have different traits than what is productive. So for example, you could type an email 15 times before you have enough confidence to send it off, because you want to make sure it's 100% correct and it's perfect. And it's kind of that fear of failure that drives people to be a perfectionist. And when you think about it, that ends up at the very pointy end being completely unproductive. There's never going to be that perfect moment to be able to make decisions, that perfect environment for you to be able to send that email in. So if you take back your don't take that back. If you take back perfectionism by, say, 5%, it then takes away that fear of having to have that absolute perfectionism. It actually makes you that much more productive. So fear of failure can really derail people in that it makes their strength, so doing a good job, it could then be a weakness because they're overcooking it. they're trying so hard with their perfectionism to do something so well because they're so scared of fear of failing. So it's a really interesting concept. Try and not overdo that strength of perfectionism. Take it back 5-10% and realize how much more productive you're going to be because you are not second, third, fourth guessing something before you do it, and realizing that it is never going to be perfect, but that is okay because that is failure. And with failure actually is another arm, and this could be another whole one on itself, but I think fear of failure also comes to something to do a little bit with learning as well. Fear of failure is understanding that it is in those moments of failure and setbacks that our biggest growth and our biggest learnings occur. So understanding that with that negative, well, it's not really negative, but with that setback, you can't achieve that level of growth and that learning without that. So kind of appreciating that there is that silver lining that will come from that, and the fear of failure is actually holding you back. It's really an interesting concept, finding that happy balance line between having enough kind of guts and confidence to do something and not being too scared to go tip over the edge, because knowing that even if you do tip over the edge, the lessons that you learn will actually probably give you great trajectory moving forward in your career. So fear of failure really is another one that really holds people back and derails their careers. And I just touched on learning. Another great one that I see so much is continuous learning. Now, some people think that they don't have to learn, or that they know enough to do their job, or maybe their job isn't their number one priority in life, so they don't have to have continuous learning. It isn't. The world is moving faster than it ever has before. Everything that we know now is changed so much quicker than it ever has, and that's only going to keep improving and getting faster. So what happens is, if we are not taking time to continuously learn, we're not plateauing, but we're actually going backwards. You're actually moving backwards while other people are taking off around you. And some people are really I can't think of the word, but really just cannot stand continuous learning. They might think that they're above it, or they have no reason to learn and things like that. And really understanding where that fixed mindset comes from. Why on earth do you think that you are above learning? Learning should be a motivator. It should be something that really gets you excited, because it gives you knowledge to be able to take those big steps, those big leaps in faith. And that's really where that comes from. So, fear of constant learning, or neglect of constant learning, that's probably a better word. Neglect of constant learning is one of the biggest derailers of your career. And really understanding that constant learning can be from a broad range. It can be from anything to broadening your mind to learning how to do a new paint, or a new art skill, or reading a different book somehow. But understanding that learning is actually continuous, that you need to have that learning to be able to keep up with the way that the world is. And if you're not plateauing, but you're actually going backwards. So that is a huge one that I see when it comes to, people having blind spots in their career, and that really puts the brakes on for them. And my last one, which is actually I see so much of, is when people do have some form of they're starting to get some real trajectory in their career, and they then start to, instead of teaching, they tell, or they command instead of coaching. So what that means is, for someone that they're leading, instead of teaching them how to do something, they're telling them how to do something, or they're commanding them how to do it instead of coaching them through it. So you can appreciate that. That also kind of ties in a lot of the ones that we've just spoken about. It ties in a lack of self-awareness, because you don't have that awareness in how that person is going to respond to you, because you're commanding those tasks upon them instead of coaching them or walking them through it, and really having some empathy about how to understand how those people that you're leading respond to your behavior if you are commanding. I mean, nobody likes to be told what to do. Yet if you break that down into a way that you're coaching them through it and you're supporting them to be able to learn through it, then you'll get a lot more support. Once you start coming in this kind of commander, telling zone. That completely puts the brakes on your career, and it can be that you are the best in your skill set at a certain point, but you'll continue to have that ceiling on you if you are commanding instead of coaching. And it's really funny, I'm sure you can see that all of these start to kind of tie in together. You know, the lack of self-awareness, the fear of failure, how your strengths and overused strength actually becomes a weakness. This is a really common one. And I'm going to say that again slowly. An overuse of a strength becomes a weakness. So an example would be a perfectionist. That might mean that you are a high achiever and you're very good at what you do, but if you overuse that to a certain extent, it actually slows down your production level because you never achieve that level of perfectionism that you want. It might be someone that's over empathetic. They then may be stuck in an emotional kind of mindset that doesn't allow them to make logical decisions. So you can really see here that an overused asset can actually become a weakness. So you need to have awareness to have people around you in your team that fill those gaps. It's okay to not have every single personality trait, but understanding and having that awareness in that, hey, I'm this kind of leader. I'm going to make sure I have these type of people in my team. That creates that awareness and keeps that balance out. So really understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are, where you need to pick them up in the team, what kind of impact that has. So you can see that they're all really tied in together and there is a lot of blurred lines there. And I think lack of self-awareness is probably one of the biggest derailers I see and hear of in careers, because it has such an incredibly broad ripple effect that it can really have, and it's almost like you're talking a different language. If you have no have no awareness of how your actions affect others, it really is like you're speaking a different language to that person. You are not understanding their currency. You're not understanding what makes them think. And especially if you're in a leadership position, if you are trying to talk to someone who is looking up to you and looking for that direction, but you're not speaking to them in a currency that they resonate with, that is never going to go well. So this today was not so much about this is what you need to do and the positive, but let's just keep an eye on some of the derailers that can be amazing traits, but they can easily derail you and put blind spots. And so they really are lack of self-awareness, fear of failure, overusing your strengths so that they become weaknesses, teach, don't tell, or often people say coach, don't command. And last one, constant learning. And with the constant learning one, it is an interesting one that I have personally experienced people kind of headbutt a little bit. And it's simple. If you're not going forward, you're going backwards. That's as simple as it is. We are moving faster than we ever have moved before. So if you don't do some type of form of learning, you're just going backwards. And that spiral effect has a huge effect on people's careers. So that is it for me tonight. Just something really to think about. I was at a meeting today where we were kind of throwing around a few of these ideas, and self-awareness is one that is really sometimes overlooked, and I just wanted to give out some shout outs on that. And the people that do have good self-awareness is, good on you. But guess what? It's not like a light switch. It's not like you go, oh, I've got self-awareness now, I can go take on the world. The greater your career, the more trajectory you have, the more you're going to be in the spotlight. So the more self-awareness you need to have. And because we're constantly evolving and constantly changing, you also need to have an awareness of how that impacts other people as well. So it's just that constant growth. So Wednesday, that is me. Amazing to see you all. Thanks for jumping on. I'm sorry I didn't get to actually write some of the comments. Hi, Corinne. Hi, Sally. Christy, Tanya, Des, Tanya, Claire, Sally. It's amazing to see all of you. I'll see you again next week, and have an amazing week. And you know what? Tomorrow, I want you to stop and have one moment of self-awareness. One moment where you're sitting in your workplace and think about what you are doing right in that point in time, how that affects others. And it may not be that you were doing anything wrong, but it may be just having some concept of how that can impact and influence other people. So as a leader, for me, example, I know if I'm really stressed out, that can really affect the entire mood of the office. I have to be very mindful of that because it can just make everybody feel tense if their leader's tense, you know? Or if I'm tired and start yawning, you can guarantee everyone in the office that sees me starts yawning. If I'm like, oh, I want a chocolate run, obviously that's a silly one. But that ripple effect that the self-awareness it can have, and how our words can mean something completely different to somebody else. So if you're invested in something and it means something that means a lot to you, but it's flippant to someone else, you can see how they could accidentally say something that could really hurt someone's feelings. So, you know, you could say, there's a certain type of work is boring. Well, you don't understand why anybody would do that line of work. If you said that to someone in that line of work that didn't realize, that has a huge impact. You're questioning their whole life's choices by you just making a comment. Instead of saying that line of work is not for me, you're saying I don't like that line of work. You can see how in a business that would have a huge impact. So it's really that self-awareness of what you're saying, what those words have effect. That is leadership more than anything, is awareness of what happens with you in the spotlight all shifts around. I've said it, that's it. Amazing, lovely to see you all, and can't wait to see you next week. Bye.